Hello, everyone, and good evening. Namaste, Sat Sri Akal, Adab. This is Ekta Sehgal Malhotra, founder and chief strategy officer, Motherhood Club. Motherhood Club has always believed in diversity and inclusion. We've been talking about various aspects of our life that we didn't know or we didn't wanted to know. We have touched upon many aspects which, most often than not, are shoved under the carpet. We don't want to change. But hey, isn't change the only thing which is constant and it is inevitable? Times have changed where each one of us has the right to choose who we want to be, how we wish to be, and what is it that we want from our life. And I think that's what puts us at ease with our own self. Was speaking to one of the leadership and happiness coach a few days back on a different platform where he said that the most important thing for any one of us to live a good and a happy life is, of course, happiness. But how does happiness come to you? When you are happy, of course, but at the same time, there are two O's that you need to focus on, which makes your life worth living and successful. You've got to be objective and you've got to own up. Today with us is a human, and I'm not going to specify the gender because with us today is Avantika Bajaj, who says that she is being fluid in this binary world. As we understand, the binary world is zeros and one, which means it's either this or that. There is no middle path, and there is so much of stereotyping that happens that we are compelled to follow a certain assembly line. But today we are here to talk about something which is different. And why is it different? We'll get to know that. But let me formally introduce Avantika. Avantika is a practicing lawyer who is involved in litigation cases. She has a partner and a 2-year-old child, a son, based in Delhi, and is trying to know who she is. I will not say anything beyond this and extend a warm welcome to you, Avantika. A very, very warm welcome at Motherhood Club, and I hope that you are doing great today.
Thanks, Akta. Thank you for all the beautiful conversations that we've had, where you've tried to understand and open yourself to what we're talking about today, which is the binary and the fluidity of just being, and the wisdom that I saw a few videos of the previous talks that you've done, and I am so happy to be here at the platform, which is basically spreading awareness to not only mothers but family members as such about children, and it's a cross section of sharing, which is at a non-commercial platform. So I wish at the starting itself, I wish Motherhood Club such so much love, and like I feel like for me to have participated and been here and joined the group recently, I feel very, very glad. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much. So, everyone, firstly, thank you for all those who have joined us and who will be joining us in the due course of time. We are live as of now on Facebook and YouTube. And as you know, that we believe in calling a spade is a spade. We bring in conversations which are real, which make a difference to the life of many. Some come out and talk about it, some like to stay inside and keep thinking whether we should or we shouldn't. Today's conversation is going to be very different, and I am trying my level best to make do justice to this whole conversation because when you have a lawyer in front, you've got to be very careful. They're very good with words, they know exactly how to handle the whole situation. But I am going to ask Avantika to introduce herself a little more in detail because her introduction is not just about being a lawyer. Her introduction is very deep. It is beyond the gender. It is something at a very spiritual or at a very metamorphical level. So, Avantika, please introduce yourself to the entire group of Motherhood Club members.
So to start, I put the lawyer aside, and I'll definitely try and bring the most authentic, wonderful human being out, so that if I share from that space, and I think that's what this group is about, sharing from vulnerability and coming into power, into common understanding and common power. So, if I had to sort of introduce myself, which I genuinely find very hard because at today's juncture, I have started. I've actually learned how to live in the moment. I don't live in the past so much. I don't try and project so much in the future, and I think that's happened to me over the course of what my life has been. And if I had to just jog my memory and go into how this journey started and what being a gender fluid human being is, and how one starts to dissociate with gender. So I think this all started at a very, very young age. And this was something to do with the fact that when I was about, maybe in my conscious mind, when I was about 3 or 4, I remember not seeing boys and girls as segregated individuals. And I'm sure every child goes through that experience to start. Like, I wasn't sure of who I am till I was told that, oh, you're a boy. But for me, I was all the time interacting with boys and girls equally. In fact, there was a time I remember where uh, I had to sort of go to school, and I was segregated into being with boys, and we were grouped that way. And I remember that feeling very strange, and I couldn't really discuss that with anybody and explain that to anybody. And I'm talking about the time when I was about 4 or 5 again. And I remember being pulled towards doing boy activities and playing with boys and finding it really strange. I think in today's time things are changing, but I'm talking about 1988, 1987. And I remember it being very binary and very straight: boys, girls. And there was no recognition of anybody who could be different mentally, spiritually, emotionally. And kids were sort of typecasted to be at the beck and call of the elders in a way where they had to organize us. And I'm sure that's how schools are today also, dealing with 20 kids. I think 20 in today's day, maybe 30 back then, in one class. A teacher would deploy all the efforts that she would need to. And if you go into the government sector and we go to those schools, the numbers are much larger. And how our segregations work are obviously based on uh, trying convenience, on how to organize and how to do things. So before going more into that, I would like to mention also something that happened to me at a very young age, which was that I was sitting in an assembly hall with boys and girls, and I remember having this really strange spiritual experience, which I didn't realize for many years what it was. It was people started singing the name of the Lord in one way or the other, and I think that specific prayer was Ram's name, and something consciously came over me where I sort of let go of all body identity, and I didn't really have any sort of a localization of my consciousness. I kind of found myself to be more expansive, and I think that was my first memory of something different that had happened. And then the second memory would be that I could not understand gender so well, and it remained like that for many, many years. So fast forwarding to almost the age where I was 11, and now I knew that I'm supposed to be a boy, like I'm born a boy. But this didn't help me go to school because I sort of resisted being classified and put in a singular way of being, a singular way of acting. And I mean, I would classically be possibly that case where I'd be too sensitive to be a boy. And I think what happened there is that by 11, my parents could see that I was different in some way. Before that, I think it was tough for them to see. And when they saw that, I went to some medical professionals who, came at that age. The kind of knowledge they had was that if you're biologically born a male, then obviously you have to have male features and characteristics, and which was not happening for me at 11. So I was pumped with testosterone and growth hormones for about 2 years at that stage. And that started my puberty as a male. Otherwise, there was no puberty hit as a male. And no one knows how it would have been and what it would have been. In today's time and age, for somebody like that, they would be counseled, their consent would be asked for, they would be accepted, at least in the Western world. And it's possible that they would be given a choice to stop their puberty and decide at the adulthood on which way do they want to transition or they want to remain fluid. But anyway, with the testosterone, what came was a lot of male attributes, a lot of male features, and I started leading my life as a young boy who basically now had everything that a boy would normally have, but consciously I was a little removed from my peers and my friends, but I would still feel like there's something hidden and there's something missing. And I think it was when I was about 17, which is back, I don't even remember, maybe, 1990.
21 years back.
Yeah. It was some long time back where I actually gathered the courage to, after coming to know that there are people who could be trans and could be different. I remember gathering the courage to write to my parents and tell them that, look, I may be your boy, and maybe that's how it is, but I have strong feminine desires and feelings, which somehow are getting pushed back because of the way the conditioning around us is and how patriarchal our structures are. So it may be possible that I may be your girl, I may be your daughter. And I remember my parents being really confused. I wrote this letter. They actually come from a very spiritual, sort of open Sikh, like almost like a Sufi Sikh cross in terms of their faith. But even then, they couldn't. It wasn't like I was abused or I was hit or anything like that. But I was definitely misunderstood. To them it felt like some alien has landed into my body and is talking from that perspective. In fact, I remember I had to become the parent in that moment. And my mom was so disturbed that I had to sort of tell her, it's all okay, I can handle this, don't worry about it. So I had to play that role of her son immediately. And many years passed, where I sort of then took up the mantle of being a diligent boy and doing things that would please my parents. Because at that cusp, I was looking for acceptance and I was looking for validation. And when that didn't come, I started to seek it in other things, which is by being an exceptional student or an exceptional sports person or a well-rounded citizen or whatever that may come at. And of course, ideal child. And so those things took over. And then I went to law school, and I remember going to law school and sort of you know again feeling a little different, like feeling like I was doing really well at my studies. I was really enjoying what I was doing. My career was taking a sort of a direction, but I could clearly see that, when I would be alone and I would be alone at night, I would hear my soul speak, and I would hear that my feelings are sort of not fully met, they're not fully expressed. And that would cause a lot of difficulty, which I now know is called gender dysphoria, which is a condition that humans face when a particular set of conditioning becomes really strong. In my case, male conditioning, while my feelings internally were feminine. And this is, I don't know if I was in a, let's say, if I was in a more Western sort of a setup or more open sort of a setup, I don't know what my preferred gender at that time would have been at 17 after taking hormones. But I do see that it would have been very different from what male and female sort of genders are. Anyway, fast forwarding much more, I did sort of make a promise to myself to be authentic to any partners, because I had a male drive, a sexual male drive coming from the hormones I'd taken. And I was attracted to women, and I sort of didn't really have an exploration of my sexuality where I would know how do I identify. I felt like I was a boy who was attracted to women. But whenever I would get intimate in whatever way with a partner, and I didn't have too many partners, it was very like, like I would always be the one who would be the shy one and stay back. And I would always have somebody somehow approach me, and mostly it would be, girls who found me sensitive and found me understanding. And I was very open to them. in terms of what I felt internally, but I was not physically able to demonstrate that, because physically I had no space or sort of an environment where I could do it. Anyway, now going way more forward, I met my partner when I was about 23, and she is about 3 years older than me. And I remember telling her the first day that, look, this is what I feel. And she came from a really she came from an educated background, and for her, it was something which was sort of, the way she saw it was, this is, of course, every man and every woman have a male or a female in them. So if this person feels feminine, it's absolutely okay, because she, in her workspace and stuff, was also dealing with a lot of men, and she would say that I also feel man-like at times, and I compete with them with that, in that sort of a with the same intensity. So her understanding was limited, but she was open and accepting to the extent where she said this novelty can exist and you could be different, and she didn't shun me for being different. She sort of wanted to explore that and understand that. But that sort of was an idealistic 26-year-old and 23-year-old. When life sort of became, let's say, serious in some ways, then we started talking about marriage, and started talking about, and especially because she was older and she came from a different faith than I from mine. So it basically was now about what would we both require to sort of lead our lives in the most holistic way, eh, depending on each other, yet standing up for each other, as individuals. So I remember at that time, I was about 29 when I got married. I had to put all these desires and feelings naturally aside, because I naturally felt like, I'm a guy and I'm getting married to a girl, and that's the role I have to play. And that's the role that got set in our relationship, till I sort of, in 2017, started to crash. Like all that I'd built in terms of a successful practice, in terms of being this ideal guy, socially very open, and somebody who lobbied well, connected well in legal circles, and was looked up as a counsel, as a male counsel. And I think it started crashing because something inside was not being able to come out and express itself. And I realized at that age that all that testosterone going in and all that conditioning going in could not take away what my innermost feelings as a child were. And this is the time I started also having a series of spiritual experiences, similar to the one I had had at 4 or 5. And then it was, I know it's a longish story and a journey, but I think some bits would help somebody who can, hear it and maybe identifies with it. So so I do remember that in 2017 I couldn't even read papers. Like when I was looking at files and papers, there was so much brain fog that it became almost impossible to read and practice professionally, and I didn't want to let down my clients. So I sought medical help, and I went to counselors, and I realized that I was actually diagnosed as a trans woman, and there are certain tests that can be done, and those tests confirmed that my gender identification markers, uh, psychologically, were of a woman. I thought like a woman while I was in a male's body, and my emotional response system was such. And because the world is so patriarchal, it gets hidden from expression. And so at that time, obviously, a lot of strife started. My partner and I, for 2 years, thought of splitting, you know, uh, getting out of each other's way, helping each other settle in the most beautiful way. Her struggle was to keep her husband, with her, and that projection fading away for her was very hard. It's very hard for me also. I mean, it was very tough for me to see. It was like I'm grieving myself, like I'm seeing myself fade away in certain parts. There were social stigmas involved. When I started opening up, talking to people, I immediately started feeling that it was important for me to talk about it, and not be suppressed and repressed anymore. And I was in a position in life where if I couldn't talk about it, then nobody could. Like I was in a position where I had steady income. I was in a position where I was a law enforcement. We call ourselves officers of the court. So I was in the law enforcement profession. And if I wasn't going to talk about it, then I was like, there's little hope for younger ones and those who are not empowered. And I remember falling onto bad times in the sense that work started dwindling, and I remember socially being ostracized. And worse than that, I remember my partner sort of um, not finding the acceptance anymore from her social circuit, where people started to look at her as an imposter. And it happened to such an extent that um, she people who even came to her with love, she couldn't trust them anymore, because you get stigmatized and you get traumatized to that extent. But anyway, the our journey then pivoted when we sort of we always wanted a child, and we were trying for one. That is one of the primary reasons for us to get married. But we sort of weren't conceiving for various medical reasons, or that my partner had to go through. She had to go through some medical tests, and there were some things that she had to undergo for correcting her reproductive system and making it optimal. And while all this was happening, we realized in 2019 October, when we were looking at almost settling abroad, or divorcing, or coming up with solutions for each other, and we realized we're having a baby. And there we were. I was at the cusp of starting hormones. I was at the cusp of fully transitioning, and preparing my body for it and things like that. And then we both put our needs aside, and we said, okay, everything else can wait. We Now that we know that there's a third member coming, and there's a beautiful energy that God is presenting us with, then we sort of put our individual desires aside, and we came together as a couple again to sort of bring this child into the world. And I remember COVID had struck when her pregnancy was very advanced. Our child is born in May 2020, and it was a very late pregnancy for both of us, given our ages. And I remember feeling more like a mother at that moment than a father. I felt both, but I felt more like a mother. And I found it impossible to lie to myself. What I was facing from 2017 to 19 as a struggle started to dissipate. I started to even get, because now a new member was coming, I started feeling more authentic. I had more confidence. I felt like it didn't matter. I used to really work out and be very fit and try and keep myself, which are great goals, for any individual to have. But every all of that also took a backseat. How you physically appear, to how you how much money you have, to how socially intertwined you are into the like the known circuits of life. All that sort of took a backseat, and now this child was taking paramount importance. And I realized I can't lie. I have to be as authentic as possible to our child. And that's what helped my partner understand gender dysphoria and what I was going through. And I'll conclude by saying this, that our journey is obviously ongoing, and like you said initially, it's a journey of self-discovery. I don't think any of us can really come to an end of discovering ourselves. And when I talk about gender fluidity, I think we gender fluidity teaches me that every moment is fluid. All possibilities are open, and we can't really um, say what's going to happen the next moment, but we can see this moment fully and realize that every this moment is so open and fluid. Like if nobody was if it was you for the first time, and somebody asked you, and let's say this was an alien race which had no gender, came and asked you, how do you identify, and you say, I'm a woman, it would take you hours of explaining, but they won't understand. you know so because they don't know it, they don't understand it. And in that way, what I exhibit today, the fluidity, is very difficult for people to understand. So it is an endeavor to just present and be open and be there to be seen, so that people can see that, oh, this can happen and this can exist. Then understanding can happen.
Okay. I'm a little numb right now because when I spoke to Avantika the first time, I knew some part of it, but I didn't know so much what she just shared with all of us. While I hold myself back, Avantika, and I absorb all that you have said and build on this conversation, let me read out a few comments in the meantime. Um, our friend Nana is here. Thank you, Nana, for connecting us to Avantika. Nana is saying that you're looking good. That's a compliment for both of us. Ila Divedi, she's our Chief Happiness Officer. She's saying that it takes lots of guts to come out in the open to declare about yourself. And Manju is saying it must have been tough for your parents also. Well, of course, yes, when there is something, which comes to you, which is not the so-called conventional way, we have a different reaction altogether. Uh, Okay, so that's from Nana. Understanding own child isn't tough. It just needs efforts and direction of understanding that is a miss among parents. It's like you show them a scenery outside the house and the parents are looking outside but through another window. Absolutely, yes, Nana, I completely agree. Having heard your journey and having spoken to a rainbow parent, we definitely understand, and we know what you're saying. I will ask you the questions later. Renu Dhawan Kapoorji is saying that it's totally unimaginative what your struggle has been, and she's blessing you. She's saying, God bless you.
Thank you.
And Ila is saying that you have your education and your partner as the major factor supporting you. Not many are as lucky as you are.
Thank
And
you.
Snedachi is saying an honest expression, kudos. Now, I have read out the comments. I will read out the question. I will ask that little later because that's a question that I also would like to ask. But, I think what you just shared, many of us cannot even imagine, because maybe we are never there. We've never experienced it. And that the yin and the yang energy that you spoke about, I think each one of us, because in today's time especially, or when we were growing up, most of us have studied in co-ed school, so you do see the privileges that the opposite gender gets, or how the girls were treated or how the boys were treated. But yes, I completely agree with you that this whole bifurcation, that this is for girls and this is for boys, I think as a child, I was also extremely rebellious about it. That why discriminate basis a gender? That I can do this, but I cannot do that, and things like that. So I think that's where the whole thought process starts to build in our mind, in our body, and I think it further builds on it. It develops as your soul told you that you may be a boy, you may be a man, but you felt like a woman, and to have lived that life which maybe you feel was not really yours because you were induced hormones, you were made to believe that you were a guy. The transition would have been very, very difficult for you, right? Because I don't think that even today, uh, you have a partner, you have a child, you have a social standing, you have your profession. Do you always be like a woman, or you are swinging between the two because of the reasons that you just mentioned? You have a child and that has taken precedence over everything, and you stopped your hormone intake for which, for the transition to be a woman. So I mean, it'll be foolish for me to ask you that how difficult or easy it is, but how do you deal with all this at an emotional level, at a mental level? Because I think that is what gets you going. As I look at you, you come across as a very strong built person, you're a robust built person, but I don't think our physical appearance has got anything to do with our mental abilities. How do you deal with that, and how do you and your partner collectively deal with this?
So like there's a lot in that question. So I'll try and address it as I remember things. So firstly, I feel like the basic fabric of being human has to be celebrated by each one of us. We first have to sort of consciously beyond any gender, beyond any identifications of being trans, binary, fluid, or man, female, alpha male, whatever. There may be thousands of these identifications, but there is a basic consciousness that we are coming from. That is our similarity. That is what connects us, which is basically our collective human experience. And beyond that, also, in the physical world, as we see so many animals and we see inanimate and animate objects, we realize that there is something greater than us that builds us and brings us all together. We at least I see it like that. I know that some people who are agnostic would say, I don't know, which is again a beautiful way of being. And I just say that there is something that is our beingness, our humanness, which is pure consciousness that we have when we don't believe our thoughts. Now remaining in that space has allowed me to sort of understand life and cope with life, and cope with opinions and cope with conclusions. Because ultimately, whatever concepts we as humans have believed have literally been, not even subjectively, they've all literally been to organize ourselves and to function together. But are those concepts absolutes? Are those concepts um, full truths? I don't think so in any way. I don't think that they are full truths in any way. So these, when I realize that I'm coming against these concepts, I realized their falseness, and I realized more of my humanness. And by remaining more and more in my conscious humanness, if I had to break that down into simpler words, I would basically say that be in this pure place of perception without any ideas or without any strongly held beliefs. Then I realized everything was even, you know, everything was free and even. And from here, I could sort of deal with a lot of things, like I could deal with uh, people demanding me to be a certain way, or people questioning me for my choices, not realizing that being trans is not a choice. If I having gender dysphoria was not a choice. I never chose to have gender dysphoria. And alienation of gender dysphoria can come in a lot of ways. So one is hormones that you spoke of. Hormones can be, and hormones can be taken right from adolescence if parents consent, just right at the time of brink of maturity, when a child is 17, 16, 17, 18. They can be administered with the consent of the child, and they can be given at any stage. Even 65-year-old trans women can transition. They can realize that, oh, I was a man living my life as a man, but I was feeling that there's something missing, and internally I was not feeling like I'm fully expressing myself. And then if gender dysphoria strikes, which is almost sleepless nights, confusion at work, like I talked about brain fog at work, not being able to concentrate on things, then you have to address it. There's no point shugging it under the carpet. It'll take you to be brave, and then with that, that effort and that faith, like one of your listeners very kindly commented, your education and your partner, you take all your strength and you put it to the test. And you try and heal yourself. And as a mother or as a father, for me it was very important to live in a way where I don't push my disappointments on my child. I didn't want to bring my child into a world where I say, oh, you know what, I will never express myself because my child would be treated weirdly. And then when the child at maybe 6 or 7 does something naughty and or silly, and you're not being able to deal with it, I don't want a psychology where I say, oh, I sacrificed all this and this is what I get. I want to be able to participate in that naughtiness and that silliness, and I want to have that year and authenticity from my child. And the only way I can have it is by presenting it. So I consciously put aside getting on hormones, because we started to explore ideas on, as a couple, we started to explore ideas on what a modern family is like, like where we remain civil parents. We possibly try and live in an atmosphere where there's more acceptance. In Delhi, I try and, safety is a major issue. As like women like you and women like your listeners, and all the beings as your listeners are very open and accepting. But for a person like me to walk on the road and not get frowned upon by at least 5 to 10% of the people, I'm saying this is a very low number, would be an exception. Or me going to, let's say, a courtroom, which I don't, which I was telling you a little while earlier, that at
Right.
work I don't express as a woman at the moment, because for me it's very important to sort of make sure that my client's interest is watched. So when I feel my full force, let's say when I feel that I have transitioned to a particular degree, if I suppose I didn't want to transition, then I think I would have had no doubts, in presenting whatever way today. And I would say that this is what it is, and this is who I am. I'm gender fluid. But I identify as a gender fluid transformer. So while I don't see gender, and I see its fluidity, and I see that as all of us can interchange and have different feelings, like quotes like "boys don't cry" don't apply, or "girls can't play sports" don't apply. So when I see
Absolutely.
all that, and when I see that nature is very fluid, like nature's nature only for reproduction is divided into gender. But apart from that, if you see a tree, it's so difficult to tell what gender it is. And if you see peacock, it's supposed to be a male, but looks so pretty, you
Beautiful.
know.
Yeah.
So so I feel like the atmosphere around us is very fluid, and I think the future of humanity also would be more fluid and more open. So I mean, like I don't know how to answer your exact question except for saying that emotionally I've learned to be open and take things as they come, remain in the moment, rest in my consciousness, and know that the concepts of others don't really bind me. They're just practical concepts. And if people hold them very strong, I don't have to fight them and explain my existence. And my being, just being, I have the birthright to be alive. And that aliveness is what my statement to life is. In some ways, that's what I present. That's how I emotionally deal with it. But it does get overwhelming. Gender dysphoria is very hard to deal with, and at that time you have to take professional help, and you have to talk to people you love, and you have to have the hard conversations. There's no other way. So I think it's and we're all codependent as humans. I don't think there is any of us who can say I'm so self-sufficient that I don't need any other human company. So we need to support each other and love each other in that way, and I think that that's what I give to people, and that's why I expect it back in some ways. If I wasn't giving it, I'm sure I could get that. And same way with my parents, I today try and be very inclusive with them. It's not a street where I'm just playing the parent, the mother or the father. It's also that I am a child to parents. So I think even those conversations are very important for me to keep them alive, and to even if it comes at the cost of them not understanding and us fighting and a lot of confusion and issues. But the pure love that we share and the pure love that I have in my heart for them has me have these difficult conversations. And that's why, as a family, we're able to, even though things are tough, I think we're able to sort of power through. And it gives us that, it makes us more thick skinned in that way.
So is the acceptance from the family gradually there, that they are willing to look at you or understand that you are a woman within? So is that acceptance there?
In theory, yes, but the way they see me is and cherish me is as a son. So every time that they have to uh, cope with that concept of me being with a woman, then what happens is that while they may acknowledge it mentally, it's very difficult for them to live it fully, and we haven't come to that at this juncture. That is why I feel like, for me and for my partner, and my partner, I think, being the most open person, and that's also happened because of a lot of struggle. And I feel all struggle is opportunity, for people to reinvent themselves. So I feel like, for us, maybe the right answer would be to be in a place where we're not socially stigmatized further, because that social stigma has happened, and maybe restart from scratch to that extent where I'm living openly and my partner can openly see how she adjusts. These are no, I don't want to impinge upon her freedoms and say, this is what you got to do, and this is what we signed up for. So, but because what we signed up for is loving each other through all circumstances, and if that means that her horizons in life have to change or my horizons in life have to change, we have to be open to that. We have to give each other that freedom, and I think that's the cusp that we stand on today.
Right. So there's another question that has come from Suraksha ji. She's asking that when your child grows up and they ask you several questions, how will you answer them?
I think I would want to be the answer to my child, like my existence, moment by moment. I would want my child to be sensitized enough to know that, as I would always listen to my child and I would always uh, be a friend to my child. I would also, in a very friendly way, would want my child to understand that this is my existence and this is how it is. And I'd be open to patiently listen to questions. I can't foresee what those questions are. Of course, I can come up with thousands in my mind at this moment. But what they particularly would be is very difficult to pin down, and I would like to answer them with patience. I would like to answer them with total openness. And if some questions are very difficult for me to answer, where I can't answer them, I have to be honest and say I can't answer these questions. You know, it's like my child may be telling me after 7 years that, oh look, uh, Mama, I don't want to play a sport. I want to go to ballet lessons, or I want to know music. At that time I might have questions on why not. Maybe he's very good at a particular sport and I might push him, but in a huge way I'd want to hear him, and then I would be like, okay, let's do ballet lessons or let's go try out musical instruments. So same way I would like to walk my child gently into my life and not force anything on him. And if there are any questions which become extremely difficult to answer, then I would seek help. I would seek help of professionals, like counselors in school, or counselors, gender counselors that I see. Maybe they can help me have those answers at that time, or my partner can help me come up with those answers. But like I said, I would want my life to be an answer. I don't want my child to be taken by shock or surprise at any stage. I want to openly meet my child every day authentically. Like when I show my child a picture of me as a man, he says Papa. When I show him a picture of me as a girl, he says Mama. And I hope this is how open we were, as a society. But that's how open a 2-year-old is.
See, actually, children, they believe what they see, and their learning is more from what they actually see. That's the way kids are. But the parenting style that we were exposed to when we were kids is very different than what we today as parents are. We are more open, we are more receptive, we communicate at a very deep level with our kids, and we are also trying to expose them, of course, age appropriate, and talk to them, because like I said in the beginning, that change is the only thing which is constant. When during when we were kids, perhaps as you said, that we just knew a boy and a girl. We never knew that there was something else, and if we did, even if it was we were exposed to it, we were exposed to it in a very, not so pleasant manner. Let me put it as bluntly as I can. We were told different kind of stories, which perhaps we don't even know whether they were true or they were not, and we were made to believe that if you're not a man, if you're not a woman, there is something to be scared of. That's the kind of conditioning that has been done with a lot of us, and I, including me, until I had a chance to speak to some of the trans women and to meet them, to realize that you are as human as I am, and you are as genuine as I am, or anybody else is for that matter. And I think what matters is that why view each other as a man and a woman? And I think I completely agree with you that it is only for the procreation process that the definement has been there, a man and a woman, and that's how the whole thing is. But I think While the times are changing, but yet that acceptance in its entirety is still not there. And I completely agree that if you see someone who is not in the conventional framework, there are eyebrows which are raised, there are different kind of looks that are given, I think, which would definitely make the person uncomfortable, right? uh, I want to ask you this question, Avantika, and this is not just specific to you, but this is specific to all the trans women or the trans men for that matter, or anybody who belongs to the LGBTQ community. While I understand that we all look for acceptance, we all look for appreciation, that's the way we are constructed. We are humans, we are not animals. Even for that matter, animals also, respond to the love that they get. But do we necessarily need that validation and that acceptance of the choice that we have made? How much of an important aspect is that in the life of an LGBTQ community member?
It's in my experience, it's vital. You know, I mean, I'd be lying to say that it's not, because uh, look, if I sort of and this does make me a little vulnerable, because it's I do understand that external validation is not the way for us to authentically live. Like, in the sense that if I just buy a car because my neighbor has one, and I try and outdo that, then obviously I'm just living in a sort of a projected world. but but validation for just being is very important, and especially for trans people, to be seen, to be acknowledged, to be included. We've been kept back so much. The closest example that I can give you is, and we've been typecasted. Like, we've been typecasted to be third sex, intersex, eunuchs. Nothing wrong with anybody, but just saying that to put everybody in the same bracket and to treat them the same way might not be the best thing. And the closest example I can give to you is what happened with the blacks just 100 years back, 150 years back. We Just because of skin color, we assumed that the white man is more intelligent than the black man, and it was okay to, because maybe black people came from more underprivileged countries. So suddenly we assume that it's okay to enslave them, and we said that it's okay to make them do manual work and labor, and they can't do jobs that white people can. So that validation to uplift them, to say yes, a black guy can go to Harvard or Stanford or to Berkeley, and can have a family, can live in the city, can employ other people, can employ a white person, and all that. That validation by getting protection from laws was very important. We are at such a nascent stage today in our world, although we think we've become very modern in a lot of ways, that back in the day, trans people were celebrated. They were sort of in indigenous uh, Indian cultures, let's say America and those societies. I'm talking about Native Americans. A third gender person, a person who could feel both a man or a woman, were called two spirited beings. They were the ones who would lead the community, and they were the ones who would be the wise people of the community, because they could feel both and they could integrate both, and they won't let the disparity happen. So, like blacks have, like women have had to be validated and pushed forward by legislations, by other women standing up for them. Trans women need, or trans people, even trans men, need all that help. And not only them, I say everybody from the LGBTQI community needs to be recognized in that way and just be accepted. It's not the basic validation sort is acceptance. Let's say, like I said, if I go to court dressed in whatever way, I should be treated the same way. And for me to go to a bathroom in a court premises, one of the primary reasons why I can't express and go is because if suppose I express and go, I don't want to go to a male bathroom, and that's not provided for me. So a validation of having a bathroom where I can either go to the women's bathroom, or I can go to unisex bathroom, would be validation. So we do seek those validations, and those validations are important to make our life more convenient. It's like the right to franchise, the right to be able to vote. It's like the right to be able to hold property. Same way, a right to be able to exist in this world. For us, we get set back, and our transness is noticed more than our humanness. It'd be nice to be validated as a human being and celebrated as a trans person. So that validation is obviously needed, but it doesn't just come from society, in the sense that what do I want from society. It's also what I want to give. In the sense that if I, as a trans person, uh, don't make conscious choices, if I sort of deliberately start making stupid choices based on being trans, uh, then obviously I'm also sort of, eating into, I'm eating from the same hand, you know, I'm eating from the same hand of being disparaged or, discriminated against. So I feel like, to sum this up, I feel like firstly, internal validation is needed. Like we need to accept ourselves, and I do want to touch upon something uh, very briefly and quickly. It's also about kids. You're going to see more trans kids in the coming years. You're going to see more gender fluid kids. How are you
I'm going to
listening
come
out?
to that. I'm going to come to that, Avantika. I want to read out some questions that, Anju Handaji is saying that if you do not answer them, they search the answer somewhere else. And, it's very important to have communication with our children at every level. And, that's what makes parenting slightly more easy. Eli is saying that yes, validation has to come from within, as you also said. And then, of course, the external validation. We have Mr. Bhatnagar who's saying that so very positive outlook. Kudos to you. And yes, you're right. We are in the very nascent stage, and we are still fighting. But I think Avantika, your education, as Eli had mentioned earlier, the fact that you're educated, you know how you feel as an individual. Your intellect is telling you that you need to come out and talk about these things. I think people like Vanessa, yourself, Nana, you all are talking about these things. You are making all of us aware about it, because if we are not made aware about these things, we'll never know about it, right? And that kind of gets connected to what you were just saying, where I interrupted you. The whole concept of parenting, as I touched upon briefly, things are changing, right? And as you rightly said, that perhaps now we will see more fluidity, we'll see more members of the LGBTQI community. We will have people making their preferences and not just going by what you are born biologically, right? As someone who is experiencing this, is going through it, and since we are all here parents of different age group kids, and as you said that one could feel like a trans woman at the age of 65 and nothing stops you to transit at that point in time, how do we make ourselves aware? How do we make ourselves sensitized to this whole thing? And the third part is how we, as so called men and women, actually come forward to accept the way it is.
Very well put, Akta. You're very receptive, and I love the way you almost open it up so much that you give so much room for a person to express. Thank you for that.
I'm not a
So,
lawyer, you see, so I don't know how to ask very specific questions.
no, but it does, for a conversation like this. It is beautiful. The scope expands, and I can also, for the first time, see things beyond things I've only seen. So, firstly, I did want to touch upon the fact that we, as parents, being a parent now, need to sort of learn how to listen to our children. What I would have wanted at a very young age, despite having really beautiful parents, extremely, like I said, very spiritual in their own way, very devout, and I would say God loving, not God fearing people. And, coming from a middle class background and how they responded to my situation, I would say that all that, if I had to today go back in time and have consent and be able to say something to them, I would say talk to me as a friend and try and know me more, you know, try and understand me more. I'm scared of certain things. I'm not being able to openly explain a few things. Help me understand them. So walk with me, hold my hand, you know, and try and understand what I am experiencing because it's confusing for me too. So as a child, I don't think I had those faculties, and I'm sure that young ones don't at this moment have so much clarity of thought. I know in today's time and age they do, but not so much that they can explain everything. There are a lot of things that they will keep to themselves, and they will feel like they have no avenue to discuss them, and then they will look for company outside. And we all know that could be positive or negative. But as parents, we have to learn how to have a keen ear where we can really like slow down and prolong a conversation with our children as a friend without being nagging, just inquisitive, that curiosity, and we don't force upon them our concepts. So I think that it's very important. And like I was saying, that as laws change, as society changes, and I'm hoping it changes like that, and we don't concentrate on things like war, and we don't concentrate on how to colonize the whole world again. We've seen what that did about less than 100 years ago. Man was taking over countries and killing other people. So I'm hoping that our kids now bring technical advancements. They sort of in art take themselves forward, and as they do, you know what's going to happen is that they will self-explore even more. And as their learning becomes higher, their understanding of themselves becomes higher, and their expressions would become higher. And I think in today's world, even a 5-year-old and a 6-year-old is coming out to their parents and saying, in a situation like mine, that hey, you know what, I'm born a boy, but I'm a girl, you know. And then in an Indian scenario, because we are living in India, all of us, most of us are. So then in an Indian scenario, we should be able to listen to that. And even if it's not that direct, and if a child says, you know what, why are boys sitting separately? Why are girls sitting separately? We should be able to listen to that too, you know. And then we should be able to just listen. So to listen as um, conscious parents, I mean, you know, I'm sure everybody who's here could be watching a OTT or a movie and stuff, but they're here trying to listen to two people because their souls are possibly pushing them towards this. And I'm obviously putting myself out there, and it can be very uncomfortable at times. It is because I feel that it's important for me to speak up, to be able to tell you guys that it's important to start listening to your kids at a very young age. And we can't use the same yardstick a school may to discipline them, like I started with, or to organize them. But as parents, instead of pushing our kids in the rat race and just making them all engineers and doctors and lawyers and what have you, let's just start listening to them. Let their careers take a little bit of a backseat compared to, you know, what their internal feelings are, so that they express their feelings and they move on. And it doesn't have to be that a child has to just be trans. It could be a child saying, I want to paint, you know.
Absolutely.
And we could hone that. I mean, I started painting at the age of when I started painting in 2017. It was a part of expression for me. When I started finding it difficult, I started painting, and I realized that I could. There was a lot coming out, you know,
And you
from with.
paid well.
It's all abstract, and I was just, you know, like it was just coming out. It wasn't anything that I sort of had learned. And your kids may be doing that at a very young age if you listen to them. So that's one thing that I wanted to talk about. The other thing that I felt that we could touch on is as adults, greeting other adults and meeting other adults. Let's treat each other the way we want to be treated. You know, these are like almost biblical concepts, and we all know these, but let's practice them. You know, let's sort of exchange the same courtesies. If you know, we're so compartmentalized that I know so many lawyers who sleep as a lawyer and they wake up as a lawyer, you know. But what about the middle bit? What about your humanness? What about the fact that, you know, you met somebody today who cleaned your car, and did you really soften yourself and acknowledge their effort. And and us as a group, like you as this group, and where I feel like a proud new member, if we exchange the same courtesies for each other, and we sort of look at each other in the same light and treat each other in the same way that we want to be treated, I think it just solves the entire problem. And
Absolutely. We need to start empathizing, I think. That's what is important.
yes, let's not
But
have
what
sympathy
Yeah,
on.
exactly. But that's what we end up doing. Most of us, we start sympathizing with people, or we start feeling, like, oh, bichara hai, how it is. And then jo hai bichara, jinko wo sochte hain, they start, then many a times, start using it as a victim card also. That, oh, I am like this, so I should be treated like this, or I should be given so much so preferences, which is true. But, Avantika, before you continue further, um, getting into the mainstream, being seen at the important places, only this will make people understand it is absolutely normal. This is from Nana. Yes, absolutely. And let me tell everyone that Nana was in Delhi, I think 2 months back, where Ela and I had met her. We met at a public place, we met at a restaurant. We were fine. She was fine. People around us were fine. We had a great meal together. We clicked some pictures. We laughed standing outside the restaurant, and it was all good. As if three friends met, they chit chatted, they interacted, and then said nice, happy bye byes to meet again. I think that is what is important. Um, okay, this one, Mukesh ji, I'm going to read out your comment a little later because this is something that I am definitely going to ask Avantika. But this is from Nina Wag. And I want to give you a little bit of background about Nina ji. Nina ji works a lot for the special needs kids, especially the kids who are on the autistic spectrum, on the ASD spectrum. She says, and while I was talking to you, I went on to this. Humanity is in the transition stage. I think that is something very beautiful. And the collective consciousness is expanding. I think that is something which is very rightly said by her, that, and I'm sure, Avantika, being a lawyer, being in that profession where you get to interact with so many professionals inside India, outside India, when we talk about diversity and inclusion, and or equity for that matter, the DIE concept, I think it's a lip service that most people do, because they like it, because every year, or it is a part of the sustainable development goal that you have to have that diversity, then inclusiveness and all that. And then there are days specific there to talk about it. You have the gender equality day and so on and so forth. To my mind, the fact that these dates are still there, that we still need to have discussions about gender equality, about inclusiveness of anything which is different, or especially abled, or anything which is not the usual. I think till we get over that, the validation that you spoke about, I think, is a must. Having had a chance to speak to a couple of kids who've been on the spectrum, mothers who are mothers or parents of the kids who are either autistic or Down syndrome kids, that's the only thing that they demand for. And I think that is what even you or people from your community are asking for, that accept us the way we are, the way we are accepting you. I think that is very important. And Nina ji is saying that she would love to connect with you to get more insight into you. Okay, so Nina ji is also based in Delhi, so I will surely connect the two of you. um, some more comments that have come, I am trying to read them. Okay. Anju Anaji saying today the art of parenting is totally different. Parents are more communicative, friendly, open, and can discuss almost on any subjects which in our times were taboo. Parents really need to accept and respect their children the way they are born as unique. Absolutely, Anjuji, and I completely agree. As a parent myself, I think Vantika, on many of my talk shows, I've said this, that one of the reasons to start these conversations was, of course, to give gratification to parents, to mothers and fathers. But the other was a vested interest, that as a mother, as a young mother, though I may not be very young, but as a young mother, and a parent of a today's generation child, it is of utmost importance that I also learn, new things, so that when my child starts questioning me, and as you said, that if I don't have an answer to something, I don't have an answer. So I need to either look for it, and I don't think that Google always ends up giving you the answers. No. It because Google is unemotional. It doesn't have that emotions attached to it. So when I spoke to one of the ladies who we spoke to, she's a rainbow parent during the Happy Pride month, and I read about her, we spoke to her, we understood her daughter's journey. And having spoken to some youth, I'm glad to share that I remember talking to a 12-year-old young girl who had very strong opinions and thoughts of the inclusiveness. You know, we as adults need to actually learn from our kids the way they accept us, the way they are receptive, and they don't just hear us, they listen to us. But we as parents only hear. That listening capability is a big miss in us. But one thing that I want to ask you, and that's the question that was there, which Mr. Bhatnagar also mentioned. He is saying that why should a validation be required? Okay. And the extension to that is, which crossed my mind also. I think it was Article 377, which came in a few years back. You are from the legal fraternity. How much more can be done in order to set aside some rules, some protocols, where the entire community gets that acceptance? And not just in terms of acceptance, that okay, that I accept you as a human. That is one part of it. The other part of it is because as a child I remember, there was a eunuch who was outside the train, at the station, where an uncle of ours thought that he's begging for money. But the person was not begging for money. The person requested that, hey, you know what, I'm educated, can you help me get a job? Though I know things are changing. But this is my question to the lawyer sitting in front of me, that how can this be changed? How can that inclusiveness can actually happen in its entirety and not on a piecemeal basis?
You see, first what Ninaji said about consciousness getting expanding, I feel that the human experience really is an experience of self-discovery more than anything else. And the only way, and we're all made of substance which is generally kind, like within ourselves. Of course, we could be tuned in very strange ways, but all humans, in my experience, are ultimately looking for peace, looking for happiness. Those are the ultimate goals. And we as individuals have to recognize that that peace and that happiness does not come from outside. That ultimately, out, till roti kapda makan, of course those are basic needs. That's something that all of us strive for. But where that comes, and after that also, at every step we are looking for external validation to our happiness and to our peace, then I think it is really, really, like, I just feel it's a never ending ladder that we will keep going on. Now, having said that, I also gave an example of how blacks were treated back in just about 100 odd years back, and continue to be treated. It's not that their struggle has come to an end. It was necessary to deploy laws to ban certain things. Now, a trans person is not really asking for validation and saying, hey, just give me this, or I'm entitled to that. It's not like uh, you know reservation gone wrong, but it is basically like, don't throw me out of a restaurant because I'm different, or don't deny me ration because you just can. Don't abuse me in a police station because I'm different, and don't think I'm a sex object because I dress like a woman. and that I'm a man who's dressing like a woman. So just don't think that you can do whatever to me and speak to me in whatever way. So that I don't know if I can call this validation. I would call this more basic rights, and that's why we made laws to protect these basic rights. So I think these basic rights are important, and when a certain section of society gets empowered enough, we can do away with certain easing, like there is procedure and there is substance. The substance will always remain the same, but we can do away with certain procedures. We can do away with, let's say, we suppose we make a unisex bathroom, and we procedurally do that for trans people, which trans people have been asking for a very long time. And let's say tomorrow society is cool enough and they can choose whatever bathroom to go to, then I think we can get done with the unisex bathroom. So in terms of validation, just I would replace that word with sort of guaranteeing of basic rights. If we're able to guarantee those basic rights, then through laws, then it will make a person like me feel very safe. Why do I today want to sort of think that, oh, my child should not get educated in India given our condition at this moment? Maybe going to another country might be safer for us as parents. There'll be lesser discrimination against my child or lesser discrimination against us as a family. Why do I fear that? Because we face that. We know that this has happened. So as long as we consciously can provide to not discriminate and not to hurt deliberately by unconscious actions, then no further validation is needed. If you're doing that. So that was answering the gentleman's question, like, right there. And for what you asked is what we can do. I think what you're doing, like you just talked about Nana and meeting her for coffee and seeing her humanness, getting me on, giving me a voice, trying to learn. You'll have your own prejudices. I understand that. You'll have your own learnings. I understand that. And in the same way, I might have my own prejudices regarding a lot of things, but it is how we want to face them. That's what you're doing. So that's what we have to do. We have to learn to face our prejudices. We have to recognize that these are places where we have more learning to do, and these are places which we're not answering. We're running away from these things, like that eunuch example you gave me. We naturally just want to get rid of them. Maybe there is someone who is in dire need and is very well educated and is asking you for a job, and maybe if you were not scared and you listen to them, you might actually give them a job for how good they were, and how skillful they were, and they might profit you in some ways. So it's about, now coming back to what Nina ji was saying. I think it's all intertwined in a huge way. If consciousness is really expanding, and if self discovery is happening and we're realizing ourselves more and more, then automatically discriminations would stop. You won't be able to see me as any different from as I see you. You'd be receiving me and seeing me as your own self. That's how she's able to help autistic children and stand for children who are underprivileged, because she's not seeing them as that. She's seeing them as human life, and she's saying that they deserve the same opportunities as any other kids, and she's being able to stand for them, removing her own self from the middle. So it's really about getting out of your own way, at a particular degree. So if we start doing that, that's all everybody needs. That's not only thing I need. That's that you need that more than me. You need to do that for yourself to have a more expansive life, to expand your consciousness.
Absolutely, absolutely. Um, so I'm sure the conversation with Avantika can go on, and there is so much to learn from her, from all her experiences that she's had, how she is trying to discover herself and trying to uh, understand and take decisions for her own self. Sorry, I got distracted by reading this comment which Ninaji said. So let me read that comment and then I'll complete what I was saying. Maharishi Ramana was asked, how do we treat others? And he answered, there are no others. Absolutely. And I think the way we want us to be treated is the way we treat someone else. If if we want respect, we also need to give respect. If we want empathy, we cannot sympathize towards others just because we can sympathize, but they need to empathize with us. So I think the rule of the game is the same, be it a man or a woman. What is important is that there should be acceptance, there should be enough and more space that we give to each other to live a life. And how much are we willing to expand our consciousness? That's a very powerful line that Ninaji said, and what you also said, that our own awakening is something that will make us be more receptive and actually build that diversity and inclusiveness, not just in our country, but anywhere else. Not that I know much about the Western part of the world as to how much are they open of acceptance, and I'm sure there are different kind of stories that a lot of people experience there also. It is still not very open even out there, but yes, it may be definitely better because of our own prejudices, our own
more,
mindset that we have.
more
But
so to just laws, just more so laws. It's equally tough. But sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt
no,
you,
no,
Akta,
that's okay.
but I thought it's important because I feel that the West, in a lot of ways, lacks, and we can't generalize, but lacks a soul. What we have is we are really authentic, beautiful people as Indians. We're very warm. We'll treat a guest uh, in a way where we won't be selfish. We won't say, how much of the pie am I going to get? We'll give our two rotis also, and we'll feed our guests, and we'll take care of them, and we'll sleep hungry. That's how beautiful we are as humans. But because our polity is so strange at this moment, where everything is politics, you know, and I think we've sort of adopted a lot of Western difficulties, but we haven't taken the beauty from there of protection through evolving laws. So that is what is sort of, that's the difference. That if I got discriminated at a workplace for being trans, I would have some rights. Of course, it'll be still a struggle. But here, I could be discriminated at a workplace, and I may have to wait for 25 years to even make people understand what I'm saying. You know, that's the difference.
You're talking about being discriminated if one is a trans. Here there is discrimination between men and women. The way a woman is treated at work, the way, the kind of work she gets, the kind of the disparity in the salaries and all those things that are there even today in the 21st century. So definitely it's it is very far away. And I'm sure all of us understand these things, but yes, we can at least do our bit. And as Nina ji is again saying that we are lacking good public role models, and I think role models like her, like you, like Nana, Vanessa, who are actually coming out and talking about all these inclusiveness, who are standing by what they're saying, I think that is what is going to make a difference. These conversations should not just be a one-off conversation, but these conversations should be on a regular basis. For all of you who were here today, who were blessing Avantika and talking, understanding her struggles that she's been through, trying to empathize with her, don't just leave it because it was a conversation, you came here, you heard and you commented, but actually try and live it and see how you can actually be that support for someone who needs it. We have differently able people, we have all sorts of diversities. How are we working towards the inclusiveness? And totally a learning experience today while listening to you, Avantika, is what Eli is saying. And she's giving you a virtual hug and a salute, of course.
Hug
So,
back.
Avantika, due to paucity of time, we will, kind of close our conversation for today. But the platform is open for you to come share what you wish to. And, we are always there to hear anytime. We are just a phone call away. Of course, you and I have bonded well, we are now friends, we can talk anytime that you wish to. But if you need to use the platform to share something that you wish to, please feel free. You're a member, share whatever you want to. The only two things that we don't really allow is religion and politics, because these two things can create a lot of drift. But anything else is most welcome. So thank you so much for sharing your life with us, sharing your journey of discovery, sharing your thoughts as a parent. And kudos to you to actually stand for yourself. There are very few who do that.
Thank you so much, Akta. And I want to thank everybody who listened and gave love. I felt truly blessed and truly connected. And thank you for opening that platform. Um, it's so overwhelming and so touching. And at the same time, it gives me so much support and happiness. So I can't thank you enough. And thank you for being such a solid friend and in such a short
Sure.
time. Thank you.
Absolutely. And it took a while for us to meet, Nana, but I'm sure it shouldn't take that long for us to meet up and actually, sit down and have a conversation tete a tete. And just one second. Okay, just one second. Okay, there is some comment that I want to read. Give me a moment. Thank you, Deepika Naidu, for joining in. Yes, I did read your comment. Uh, Deepika, we are eagerly waiting to hear you also. Deepika is also a trans woman, and she's been in conversation with our Chief Happiness Officer. We will definitely want to hear your journey. Come forward, share, inspire. And yes, let's collectively raise our voice towards anything which is not right, to anything which needs to be spoken about. You can't just hide behind it. High time that we come out, we speak for ourselves, we speak for all the people who matter to us. And I think that is what I very proudly, as the founder of this group, would say, that we don't mince words, we don't shy away from touching conversations which many would shy away from. And we have done that in the past and we will continue to do so. So thank you so much, Avantika, for being here, for talking to us, for taking our time on a weekday, and looking forward for more interactions. And you definitely have our support for sure.
Thank you. Thank you.
And for everyone, thank you so much for joining in. It was absolutely a pleasure to read all your comments, to be here and actually support Avantika, and to also support Motherhood Club in their endeavors. That yes, we are on the right path to talk about different aspects, different subjects that matter to us. Putting a closure for our conversation today, and for tomorrow evening at 6 p.m. Don't forget to join us for something very, very special. Tomorrow is World Humanity Day, where we will be felicitating a few humanitarians of Motherhood Club. And wait for it at 6 p.m. tomorrow. So till then, stay safe, take care. The cases are still not gone, and we all need to be safe. Take care of our family, our kids, because we have COVID still hanging around, monkeypox, hand, foot, and mouth, and God knows what not. And of course, let's work on our mental wellness also. So thank you, everyone. Take care. See you. Signing off for today. This is Ekta Sehgal Malhotra, founder and chief strategy officer of Motherhood Club. Take care.